All right, we're going to dive into how a major 20th century power fought a full-blown war 8,000 miles from its own shores. This is the story of the Falklands War, a short, brutal conflict that completely rewrote the rules of modern combat and saw Great Britain pull off a logistical feat that, honestly, many thought was impossible. So that's the big question, right? How on earth did they do it? The answer is this incredible mix of logistics, some key technological advantages, and, a heavy dose of sheer luck that literally came down to how a bomb is fused. And there it is. That was the unwavering tone set by Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher just one day after the invasion. There was absolutely no ambiguity. Britain was going to war, and this quote signaled the immense political will that was about to fuel the massive military campaign to come. Okay, so how did we even get here? Let's take a look at the spark that ignited this whole thing, down in the cold South Atlantic. So yeah, while the dispute over the islands was very old, the invasion itself was a calculated gamble by Argentina's military rulers. I mean, they were facing massive inflation, civil unrest. They saw seizing the Malvinas, as they call them, as the perfect patriotic distraction. They just assumed Britain, 8,000 miles away, wouldn't or couldn't do anything about it. And that was a fundamental, and as it turns out, a fatal miscalculation. Now this is where it gets absolutely wild. The sheer scale of the British response. This wasn't just a military operation. It was a logistical miracle. Just try to wrap your head around that number, 8,000 miles. Imagine mobilizing an entire task force, warships, supply vessels, thousands of troops, and keeping them supplied over a distance that's like going from London to LA and then almost halfway back again. It's truly one of the most remarkable logistical feats of modern times. And this right here, this was the choke point. That number, 3,800 miles, is the distance from the only available forward base, this tiny volcanic rock called Ascension Island, to the Falklands. For a few months, its little airfield became the busiest in the entire world. Without it, the whole operation would have been dead in the water. And this slide right here brilliantly illustrates a key technological advantage. Britain had a whole fleet of converted Cold War bombers that could refuel their jets in mid-air. Argentina had just 2. That massive gap meant Britain could fly these epic 16-hour reconnaissance missions all the way from Ascension Island, a capability Argentina just couldn't dream of matching. So let's move to the heart of the conflict, because this war wasn't really going to be won on the ground. No, the fate of the islands was going to be decided right here, in the skies above and on the seas below. Okay, so the British Sea Harrier was the star of the air war, for sure, but its deadliest weapon was this brand new American missile, the AIM-9L Sidewinder. And here's the crucial difference. Argentina's missiles were rear aspect. You had to get right behind an enemy jet to get a lock. But the Sidewinder, it was all aspect. A British pilot could get a lock from the side, from the front, pretty much any angle. That tactical edge, plus better training, made the dogfights incredibly one-sided. But Argentina had an ace up its sleeve. A silver bullet, and its name was the Exocet missile. This thing was fired from way outside the range of British defenses, and it flew so low to the water that it was almost impossible to detect. The thing is, Argentina only had 5 of them, but every single one was a potential ship killer. And the power of the Exocet was proven in this shocking attack on a modern destroyer, the HMS Sheffield. Now get this, the missile's warhead didn't even explode. The sheer kinetic energy of the impact and all its unspent rocket fuel started a fire so intense it just doomed the ship. That single moment sent a shockwave through every navy in the world. The age of the sea-skimming missile had officially arrived. So while the Exocet was a terrifying threat to ships, in direct dogfights, the results were just stunning. As you can see, Sea Harriers shot down over 20 Argentine jets without a single loss in air-to-air combat. It was this total dominance in the sky that made the next phase of the gamble, the land invasion, even possible. And now we get to the climax of the gamble, the British landing at San Carlos on May 21st. To retake the islands, they had to put troops on the ground, which meant bringing the fleet in close, basically making it a bunch of sitting ducks for the Argentine Air Force. What followed was 1 week of absolute hell. The British fleet suffered these relentless and incredibly courageous attacks from Argentine pilots in this narrow body of water that quickly got a new name, Bomb Alley. They flew dangerously low, right into a storm of missiles and gunfire to press their attacks. It was just a brutal battle of attrition. And this is where sheer luck just walks onto the stage. The Argentine pilots were incredibly brave, flying dangerously low to get under the British missiles. But that very bravery worked against them. See, they were flying so low and so fast that their bombs didn't have enough time in the air to arm themselves properly before they hit the ships. It was a fatal, and for the British, a very, very lucky technical flaw. This number is just staggering. 13 more bombs hit British ships but were duds. They just failed to detonate. I mean, think about it. If even half of those had worked, the British fleet would have been crippled. The supplies would be at the bottom of the ocean, and the invasion would have failed. The entire war was nearly lost right there in Bomb Alley. So let's look at the key takeaways from this conflict, because they still echo to this day. This war became a live-fire laboratory for modern warfare, and believe me, everybody was taking notes. The first lesson was the terrifying power of so-called standoff weapons. The Exocet showed the world that a small, relatively cheap missile could take out a multi-million-dollar warship from miles away. Every modern navy had to rethink everything after that. Second, the war exposed a massive weakness. Without dedicated airborne early warning aircraft, basically flying radar stations, the British fleet was blind to low-flying attackers until it was almost too late. That deficiency cost them dearly and led to immediate changes in how navies operate. And finally, the whole operation became the textbook example of force projection. It proved that if you have enough political will, enough logistical genius, and the right tech, it was actually possible to fight and win a conventional war on the other side of the planet. Which, of course, leaves us with one final big question. In today's world of satellites, cyber threats, and hypersonic weapons, could any nation actually pull off a logistical feat like this again? Could this kind of audacious, high-risk gamble against all odds ever be repeated?